Welcome back to Speedrunning Random Games, where we click this button on speedrun.com that sends us to a random game and I have to beat it as quickly as possible. No need for long intros, so let's start the first game already. Alright, the first game of the day. Let's get right into it. What? Vam Protect? Is that like a combination of two words? Vam Protect is a 2023 puzzle game by Spolarium. There are exactly 50 levels to beat in this game, but there aren't any collectibles, so the only thing we have to do is beat every level in order. At its core, this game is pretty simple. We have to move to the goal while using mechanics like switches and boxes while avoiding the light that will instantly kill us since we are a little vampire box guy. The most interesting mechanic is introduced in level 21, the dash. We can dash across small gaps as long as we are facing the way we want to go. Having to face the right way is where the complexity of this mechanic shines, as you can only change which way you are facing based on your movement, meaning you have to plan your route through levels. The last important mechanic are walls that move when you move, which determine which areas are lit up. You need to move in a certain way during part of a cycle to make it through without dying. There aren't really any special techniques in the levels for this game. They are very straightforward and don't have sequence breaks. They are also all very short both casually and in a speedrun setting, except for the last two levels. The main strategies to note are that WASD and the arrow keys work at the same time, so mashing both will let you move much faster. The other strat is to press R after dying instead of waiting for the death screen to pop up so you respawn quicker. Now in terms of doing runs, when I casually played through the game for the first time, it took me just under half an hour to beat. Because I beat it in one sitting while recording, it was technically the world record since the leaderboard for the full game was empty. Alright, time for the next game. On my first real run, I overhaved my previous time, even with a lot of resets, deaths, and forgetting what to do. With nothing else to compare it against, this led me into thinking that a sub 10-minute time would be good. That goal was misplaced, as I got an 8:06 just a few runs later. However, this run still had a few mistakes, so I wanted to push it further and get a 7-minute time. During my final run, my movement was going well, and my memorization was also adequate at this point. I was still reacting to what level I was actually playing at the start of every level, which lost a bit of time, since I wasn't preemptively moving. But I knew how to do all of the puzzles quickly, and catch all of the cycles in the later levels. The only major mistake in this run was a 10-second death in the very last level, which is painful in a run that is under 8 minutes long. I say under 8 minutes because I reached my goal with plenty of time to spare, getting a 7:39. This game was starting to get boring and I was confident in that time, so I concluded my runs there. Overall, this game is merely okay. It really just boils down to a simple web puzzle game with a bland art style. This game also has a grand total of 0 music tracks, so for the entire time you play this game, the boops of jumping and pops of dashing are all that you will hear. The only puzzles that felt interesting to me were the ones in the last two levels. Some of the levels are just a few seconds long, making most of the 50 levels uninteresting and feeling like filler, just so that the game had some length. The speedrun is a bit more interesting though, since you have to count how many times you press the movement keys in order to not die, as well as needing to fully understand every puzzle. However, it's a little boring and relies on a lot of mashing. I'll give this game a 2 out of 5 casual score and a 3 out of 5 speedrun score for a final verdict of 5 out of 10. Alright, the second game. I have nothing funny to say, let's just see what it is. Anomaly Agent. Why are these all Turkish? What the hell? Anomaly Agent is a 2024 hack-and-slash platformer by Few Games. Looking at the Steam page, this game has over 7,000 reviews, and looking at the speedrun page, even the world record is almost 2 hours long, so this one might be interesting. Starting the game on hard mode like a real gamer, we are put right into the action, having access to a moveset of attacking with X, jumping and double jumping with A, and rolling with the right button. After fighting a few tutorial enemies, we get access to a card that can be thrown to stun enemies, called clones, and destroy some environmental objects to give us an advantage. During the first boss, I noticed every checkpoint fully restores my HP, so conserving HP isn't that big of a deal in this game. After beating that ugly ass ball, we complete the prologue and gain access to a parry, as well as some lore on how we are Agent 70 from T-Day, and we have to stop crazy anomalies from destroying stuff. We are also introduced to the karma system, where kind answers give us good karma and mean answers give us bad karma. The karmas are basically a currency, and good karma can buy more max health, and bad karma can be used to get more money. Money buys us permanent upgrades that make us much better in battle. With the introductory things out of the way, Chapter 1 begins. It turns out that our parry is also a reflector, and we also get to pick up guns for the first time. Enemies with guns will drop them with only a few shots in them, but they deal a lot of damage. The max amount of ammo you can hold is pretty small, so conserving ammo while still actually using it is often needed to beat enemies quickly and efficiently. After a few simple puzzles, we learn our first anomaly power, which is like a super move. The first one is this big AoE attack that stuns everyone it hits, which is also a good get off me tool. I should also mention that enemies of the same type can fuse themselves together to become a tier stronger, so stunning enemies and taking them out quickly is needed before they overwhelm you, especially in the early game when we don't have that many options to deal with them. Beating enemies is also important because we are required to beat them to progress to the next screen. They also give us money, as do chests and some terrain elements. Before the next boss, there's an ominous message about attacks that are unable to be parried. Luckily, the big wrestler guy we have to fight is weak to guns, and we have a friend who is dropping them to us the entire fight. We are then transported to a club to take out the next bad guy causing anomalies, and along the way we get access to another super move, a giant punch that knocks enemies back and deals big damage. As well as a bat on the Y button that is a slower attack but deals more damage and knockback. Over the game, more combos for the bat are unlocked that eventually make it essential to combat. Shortly after, enemies start having shields that can only be broken with a bat or guns, which greatly affects how ammo needs to be managed from here on out. After dodging a maze of electricity, we make it to a guy in a hood and beat him up. It turns out that we just fought an imposter, but we now know that the real one is hiding away on a zeppelin, so we quickly get out of the club, only to see that the enemies we have been fighting are crawling all over the city. All of this is still Chapter 1 by the way. In order to make the Zeppelin pull a Hindenburg, we have to arm some anti-air cannons while jumping across rooftops. This is where the game explicitly teaches us how to roll in midair. Rolling in midair is very important because it gives us a bit of a speed boost in order to cross some of the larger gaps. This speed boost is one of the fastest ways to travel, so using it when we get to the speedrun will be extremely important. After making our way through the city and fighting a lot more, we successfully take down the Zeppelin. This makes the real hooded man come out and fight us, and he explains that he wants to go back in time and save the city from an incident that previously happened to it. I wish the city had an actual name because it's just so bland to say the city every time. Anyway, we try to fight him, but we can't beat him since he can control time with a magical stone, So somehow in retaliation we break it into 2 pieces, which corrupts the flow of time and finally starts Chapter 2. After a sequence of retracing our steps to talk to others and ourselves about the time loop we damned ourselves to, we head to the Space-Time Intelligence Bureau to find a way to fix this anomaly. I'll try to speed things up now since the game has established itself. After beating an almost endless assault from the clone enemies, we figure out the people we are fighting are stuck in the same time loop we are. Beating the Alpha Defender boss gives us the last special move, Coin Shot, which is like if the punch went behind and in front of us while dealing less damage. This leaves us trying to chase down the artist at the beginning of Chapter 3 to get her piece of the Time Stone. She's in her secret base that's connected to the club from earlier, and this place is full of crushers that will instantly obliterate us even if it just touches our toes as it comes out of the wall. There's also a lot of kamikaze enemies that are mostly helpful to us, since they more often than not blow up our foes instead of good old Agent 70. After many trials and tribulations, we do end up making it to the artist, but the big bad hood guy takes her away to get her half of the Time Stone. We chase after them to a clone production facility, and we get a costume that lets us stealth our way through, which is sometimes much faster than dealing with all of the enemies. After engaging in some funny clone-to-clone communication, we use a lot of keycards to chase the Time Stone pieces further into Chapter 4, which is the final one. This is really just a short gauntlet of most of the mechanics learned from the previous levels in the final battle against the Hooded Man for the Time Stone. He takes his hood off and his name becomes the Unhooded Man, so you know shit just got serious. After a genuinely hard battle, we obtain the Time Stone and get to choose to give it to T-Day or use it ourselves to try and fix the past disaster with the city, and this choice changes which ending you get. After a short epilogue showing the ending, the credits roll and the game is finally over. But all of that was just for the casual stuff. Before starting my runs, I had to consider which category I wanted to do. The start of a new game file is pretty boring when you have already beaten it, since so much of what makes this game good is the moveset you unlock and build while playing it. So I chose New Game Plus, just like every other runner. Then I had to consider easy or hard mode. The problem with the difficulties in this New Game Plus run is that you can farm infinite max health while doing a lot of New Game Plus playthroughs, or getting good karma just to buy max health. This makes it so doing hard mode really just requires a huge grind before starting in order to be optimal, which I did not want to do. Now it makes sense to me why every run is done on New Game Plus easy mode. Starting my first run, I used the mid-air rolling speed to my advantage in order to move effectively, just like I learned in the casual playthrough. It almost reminds me of a Souls-like. I should also explain how enemies unlocking the next area works in more detail. At the end of every room, the enemies from earlier portions will teleport to the end with you, as a quality of life feature so you don't have to backtrack. However, some enemies come in multiple waves and they will not spawn in if the enemies are teleported to the end sometimes. So generally in shorter rooms earlier in the game, you should rush to the end to wipe out all the enemies at once. While in larger rooms or later in the game, enemies should be taken care of on the way so the game works properly and lets you progress. One of the most important skills in this run is the one that gives every enemy a 25% chance to drop a random gun upon dying, which greatly increases our damage output from having a lot more bullets to use. There are also a lot of other things we can get from buying skills, like dealing more damage with all of our moves, being able to use critical hits, having a higher max ammo cap, and leaving poison clouds when certain things happen. I already explained most of the game in detail, and there isn't much room for sequence breaking or any cool glitches that I know of. A lot of the run is just knowing how to deal with enemies on the fly. My first run was very bad, as I was still lacking some skills and my max health was still lower than I wanted it to be. So I was trying to read to select the choices that would give me good karma and shopping in the middle of the run to buy every skill. I also died a lot since I was still not that good at the game, and I even forgot the solutions to some of the puzzles, so I had to re-solve them. That run ended up being 2 minutes and 7 minutes long, but my next run cut a whopping 10 minutes off of that. However, I still felt that there was some room for improvement, so I did one more run. During this last run, I was playing pretty well. My combat skills had improved significantly, and I was shaving off time everywhere. Near the end of this run though, my hands started hurting from all of the mashing I had to do in order to get through the dialogue. Still, I memorized a lot of important tech, and I was even out of chapter 2 in under an hour. All of my splits were gold, and I ended up smashing the world record by over 4 minutes. Finally, it's time for the review for this game. Casually, I greatly enjoyed the combat when all of the abilities and tools were there, especially with how much of the environment can be used to your advantage. Guns, crushers, drops, electric surfaces, and more are all placed in ways that spice up the moment-to-moment fighting, making it interesting throughout the whole game and even on repeat playthroughs. I also liked how the bad guys in the story were easy to agree with and made you question your own actions. Although the characters and world building were kind of flat. The aesthetic is on point though, and the game's unique art style is very nice. As a speedrun, it has its ups and downs. The combat is very fun to optimize and the movement is simple yet satisfying. But I think it's too long and repetitive, so it kind of overstays its welcome. There is also a lot of mashing through dialogue, which is boring and painful in the hands, making the speedrun just kind of a bit better than okay. Overall, I give this a 4 out of 5 casual score and a 3 out of 5 speed game score for a 7 out of 10 total. Okay, last game kinda long, but actually a good game. Can we get another good game? Is that even possible? Let's see. Family Feud. Oh, okay. We'll see. This Family Feud game is for the Game Boy Advance and it released in 2006. In this game, we have to answer simple questions with responses that other people were surveyed for and chose. Every round starts with a standoff where you buzz in after the question is read, and getting the highest scoring answer between the teams allows you to either pass the round to the opposing team or play it yourself. After 3 wrong guesses, the opposing team gets 1 opportunity to steal all the points if they give a response that is on the board. The first 2 rounds are worth 100 points, while the third is double points and the fourth is triple. If neither team reaches 300 points by then, a sudden death happens where the first team to give the top answer progresses. After reaching 300 points or winning the sudden death, that team gets to play the fast money round, where 5 questions are asked, with 2 opportunities to answer each question. Reaching 200 points there will win you the game. The goal of the speedrun is to win the fast money round, and the strategy for the first part is to buzz in as quickly as possible, type the highest scoring answer, and pass it to the opposing team, which will minimize the time spent typing and dialogue that needs to be mashed through. They will almost certainly give you the opportunity to steal, since we are playing on an easy mode that makes them almost incapable of saying a correct answer, which lets us get a lot of points without having to slowly type out answers. During the fast money round, the only thing of note is that it's really just a knowledge check on what answers are good enough to get 200 points. During the entire run, you have to mash A to get through dialogue. Waiter, more mashing through text please! It's a very short run, with the world record being under 5 minutes. When I started doing runs, I was trying to play the game normally. Like I mentioned, this game came out in 2006. This makes many of the questions that rely on slang and popular people much harder to answer because of how outdated they are. The game also has a very small dictionary and lack of synonyms, so similar answers rarely get counted, leading to many frustrating moments where you say almost exactly what the survey says, but the game denies it. I also just kind of suck at Family Feud. After finally getting a run that actually beat the game after 9 whole attempts, on easy mode by the way, I rewatched the world record run to see how I was losing time. It turns out that mashing both A and B will skip dialogue much faster, and pressing the R button will immediately move the cursor to the enter key, making the typing faster. I also noticed that they were glancing back and forth during the run, likely at a guide. So I found a guide by Lambda on game FAQs on every question in the game. So, during my opponent's turn, I would use Ctrl F to search the page and type with one hand on my laptop, while mashing with the other to find the question and have the best response ready when it was my time to steal. During the fast money round, you can stall for infinite time by typing and erasing what you wrote, as the timer stops while writing answers. I kept doing more runs until I got a really good run that won in the 3rd round instead of the 4th, and all of the fast money questions were easy or ones I already knew the answers to from playing before, leading to a lot of time save. I was so far ahead that I submitted 1 character long answers to rush toward the end, giving me a 2nd place time of 5:05. Casually, this is a pretty meh game. It definitely feels like a bargain bin game that came out on the GBA almost 2 years after the DS was released. The dated questions and hard to please answering system make this a little frustrating to play. There's a 2020 version, so that one will probably have some better questions if you're really going feral for a Family Feud video game. But it's also published by Ubisoft, so I don't know. Family Feud can still be an entertaining game though, so I'll give it a 3 out of 5 casual score. In terms of a speedrun, this sucks. It is a monotonous mess of mashing, memorizing and cheating answers, and trying to get lucky with the questions that let you type short answers. Absolutely abysmal, 1 out of 5 speed game score for a 4 out of 10 total. Moving on. Alright, the last game was pretty short and also bad, but not like actually bad, it wasn't like comically bad, it was just meh. So I'm thinking I'll do one more. Cause like in the last bit I only did 3, this time I'll do 4. Let's do one more. Baby Shark Adventure. What the fuck? Okay, maybe I shouldn't have done one more. Oh no. So, it has come down to this. Baby Shark Adventure is a 2018 platformer by Smart Study Games. The game consists of many levels where the goal is to get every star bubble while automatically bouncing around and only being able to move by going left and right. The game also has microtransactions for things like cosmetics and level packs, of course. Ugh. In the run, we have to beat the first 3 worlds, which are the ones you don't have to buy. The levels have basic mechanics like spikes, enemies, crumbling platforms, and bounce pads. The only 2 mechanics that really need explaining are the ninja potions that give you a single dash if they are yellow, or an infinite amount until you beat the level if it's red. There are also zipper blocks that move you in one direction until you hit a wall or move. That's really it. This game is very simple. In fact, by the time I beat the game for the first time, I was already bored of it and kind of dreading having to play it several times more. But, for the sake of the video, I pressed onward. The first run I completed was a 15:05, already good enough for the 2nd place time. However, the 1st place time was miles ahead, a 12:52. I knew that to truly be epic, I needed to take that spot for myself. I did more full game runs to get better at the bouncy movement that actually makes the run kind of interesting. I learned the individual level strats, like in Alaska 18, where you can drop out of the zipper by holding right to beat the level immediately. Alaska 23, where extremely good movement will give you a very fast cycle through the enemies. In West Forest 18, where instantly dropping out of the zipper will let you get on the bounce pad immediately without hitting the wall first. But it wasn't enough. My best was only a 1330, still 39 seconds away. I needed more time save. I started memorizing which levels had dialogue at the start and which didn't to optimize my mashing and movement. I learned how to abuse the collision systems to clip up ledges and move quicker. I even learned that restarting after beating the level will put you in the next level, but then it will reset when the normal transition would have happened anyway, so it wasn't helpful. But eventually, just like that, I had become the best baby shark adventure player in the world. What a prestigious title. Sure. You saw for yourself how this game is very plain, and to me, it feels like an asset flip of a game, with baby shark slapped on top of it, just so kids will spend their parents' money on it. At least it's kind of a game though, so I'll give it a 1 out of 5 casual score. The speedrun is somehow a little better. The bouncing gives a lot more room for skill expression in the movement, and there are a few neat tricks. However, most of the other levels are very boring and straightforward, and when combined with the dull feeling the game has already been providing, this gives it a 2 out of 5 speedrun score for a 3 out of 10 total. That's about it for today. I am now the best player in the world in 3 more games. At least by the specific metric of having the best speedrun time. Which totally counts, by the way. I'm the best ever. So best, awesome, epic, so awesome, the best. That's when I ever do it. Anyway, since you've watched until the end, consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. If you have any video ideas you want me to do or anything else to say, then tell me because I would love to hear it. Anyway, have a good one.